How do you see us moving now? I mean, just yesterday the president met with the girls, with the parents of, Chibok girls, and also some of the escapees. We also met with yesterday. Reassurances were given, but the reality remains that these girls are still in captivity. How do you see us progressing from here?
Okay. I think there are two issues here. The meeting of the president with the Chibok community, the girls as well as the parents, is a good thing to have happened, even though I think it happened late. I think we ought to have taken a more rapid initiative to respond in such a way that that community and communities around that area understand that the state is concerned not only for security, but for them as human beings. So I think this ought to have been done much earlier. On the other hand, we should realize that a matter of this nature cannot really be rushed unless you want to convert the Chibok event into a drama. The abduction of these girls and wherever they are is not theater. It's about the life of people. And the group that's involved is deadly. It has shown it over and over again that it will take whatever action it needs to take to cause harm and to embarrass. So I believe that from what I've read here and there, that the Nigerian state and security forces are taking steps, as I understand it, to deal with these issues in such a way that we get the best possible result, which is essentially to get these girls back intact. And what I think we should do is to actually support the state overall to achieve that. That's the objective. So it should not be used as a basis for a politicized basis, for people's self-aggrandizement.
Should we fear, though, as to what could be happening to those girls? I mean, we did have a guest once in our show who did say that the longer those girls stayed, with the terrorists, the greater their chances of being radicalized and, used, even when they're released to their own advantage.
Oh, yes. I mean, one can imagine that the efforts will be made to convert them, for example, to abuse them. There are many dimensions of this issue. Whatever happens to this girl, they have been profoundly transformed and shaken. And even if we get them back, we have to devote time and years to letting them recoup psychologically and socially. This is a disruptive event, not only for the parents and the community, but for the girls who are involved. That is why we have to be careful not to organize our response as if it is something we can simply go there, get them, and retrieve them.
Okay, but you talked about the fact that that leaders, religious ones, should have spoken up earlier, but they're speaking up now. You think that is helping in any way to sort this problem out?
It will probably help over the long term. What I'm saying, basically, I'm not convinced that the way it is couched is enough to deal with the profound series of problems that Boko Haram has implanted in our society. There's no need for defensiveness. This is not a war of Christians or Southerners against Northerners, Christians against Muslims. That group has made it quite clear. It has killed emirs, threatened emirs, and so on. It has made it quite clear, as I said, it's an equal opportunity oppressor. If that is the case, it's a Nigerian challenge which has no religious coloration. Therefore, all groups in Nigeria, religious, Islamic leaders, Christian leaders, all community leaders, ought to have a common framework of response that emphasizes the aberrant nature of this group and what a challenge it is to us as a nation. And therefore, it should be isolated, contained, defeated, and expunged from our system.
How would you assess our response to this as a society first, in terms of what we do to see that, look, this becomes history?
Initially, I think, like most people were very shocked and so on, But unfortunately, I'm not very sure that we've handled it as a society as a united issue. An issue of this nature requires united front. There's no discrimination about the response of the attitude of Boko Haram and its supporters. So I think as a society, we ought to have responded in such a way that it is quite clear that we're intolerant of and will not accept this kind of action. And we have not done that very well, and we see all kinds of groups using this or seeming to use this as a basis for self-aggrandizement. I think that that's a profound failure of our elite. Our elite are part of, I think I consider to be the primary problem that we have in this country. That they have no, even though our elite have actually been brought up by Nigeria, they have no buy-in into the idea of Nigeria, into Nigerians as such. They see Nigeria as an exploitable commodity. And in my own conception, I speak of what I call Nigeria's profound problem is the elite and leadership infidelity to Nigeria.
So do you then subscribe to the view of those who say this is political?
It's been politicized. It's not entirely political. You know, I mean, the group itself, which, as I said, gabbed itself in religious dress. But in the process, I think various elements have attempted to politicize it and make political capital out of it. You know, that's why I said it's really unfortunate and tragic, because since the Boko Haram itself does not discriminate, those who politicize this can be victims too. This is an occasion for united front. When you face a challenge of this nature, you can't afford to be divided.
You heard some people who say it's difficult. One of the reasons you've given is that this group, a bunch of infidels, but they also seem to wear a Puritan garb, which a lot of people say have made them quite popular, or made them popular initially. A lot of people said that, you know, it was something that some people had yearned for because of the failing of the political class. Even that Puritanic garb was also a disguise of some sort. How do we unrobe it of that particular garb?
What we need to do, as I said earlier, essentially, is to come back to the middle stream of Nigeria, of Nigerian religious and social cultures. That the middle stream of Nigerian social cultures are essentially tolerant. That's why I went back to ancient times to make the point that we've always had a tradition of coexistence. We didn't start coexisting today. We may live in a single entity today, but when we had our diverse kingdoms, empires, and so on, we interacted with each other politically, diplomatically, economically, and socially. So what we have not done successfully has been is that we've not been able to bring or create a narrative that makes common Nigerians understand that our tradition is one of intergroup tolerance, intergroup coexistence. So this puritanical group, I insist, is an aberration. So we should have defined and isolated in that way. It is true, any group can excite interest from people and get followers, you know, but that doesn't mean that it is right. The mainstream, most of us are in the middle. We want to live our normal lives, interact normally, and have been doing that. You know, so that's the message I think that we've not been able to articulate and tell to ourselves.
Give us your perspective of this that happens in society. I mean, only recently you heard, I think it was, the security agency saying, look, every state government, every group, first stop registration of people, don't deport anyone from any part of the country. We're all Nigerians, you should stay wherever. But that was necessitated by certain actions which they've got information about, we reckon. Because if there's a situation where if an explosion had occurred in any part of the region other than the north, you may have this profiling, and then you may have this backlash. Yeah. So as a society, look, that's a potential situation that we don't want to see on our hands. So how do you see us overcoming that? Because look, that could happen.
Yes. I have to say that I was profoundly disturbed by that turn of events. I think, again, that this is where the federal government should have come out right from the beginning when anybody attempted to register anybody, right from the beginning and make it quite clear that that's not acceptable at all. We live in a common country, and we should remember, always, we should remember this, that the people we are profiling, the so-called northerners in southern Nigeria, some of them have been living there for 100 years, for 50 years. Are we going to say that people who have been our neighbors for 100 years are suddenly suspect, who have intermarried, who have done all of that? So again and again, I make the point that our story as a commonwealth is not being told to us within. So groups have an opportunity. The other dimension of our history, we should remember, is that we have political groups who have a disreputable tradition of exploiting sectionalism, exploiting confessional differences, exploiting religion. That exists already. In fact, a lot of our political leaderships cannot operate without sectionalism. So that is there. But we ought to come out and make it quite clear, as far as I'm concerned, at the federal level, that we will not accept in any way the registration of Nigerians anywhere or the deportation of Nigerians from anywhere. You can't deport somebody in his own country. You know, so neither local governments, nor state governments, nor anybody should be allowed to engage in that kind of dangerous and disruptive activity. If we do that, we are saying that, in fact, Boko Haram has succeeded.
All right, Professor Ehiedu Iweriebor, unfortunately, we have to let it go there. He's an expert on African affairs, and he's currently with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thank you for coming on this.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
We'll be back after this break. Join us again.